The wind carried dust across the barren street of Sweetwater Creek, Texas, as Eliza Lawson clutched her shawl tighter around her face, not against the chill of the autumn evening, but from habit born of shame. It was 1875, 3 years since the fire that had taken her family's ranch, her parents, and left half her face a canvas of twisted scars that no proper lady should bear. The stagecoach had delivered her to this dusty frontier town with nothing but a carpetbag of belongings and a letter promising employment at her late father's friend's general store. She hesitated at the wooden boardwalk, watching townsfolk pass by with curious glances. Each look felt like a brand upon her skin, marking her as different, damaged, unworthy. Eliza had learned to live with the whispers, the averted gazes, the children pointing before being hushed by their mothers. What she hadn't learned was how to believe she deserved anything more. "Miss, you're blocking the way," came a deep voice from behind her. Eliza startled, turning quickly while adjusting her shawl to better cover the right side of her face. The man before her stood tall, his shadow stretching long in the setting sun. His hat was pulled low, but she could see kind eyes beneath the brim. "I apologize," she murmured, stepping aside. Instead of passing, he remained, studying her with open curiosity that lacked the usual disgust or pity. "You look lost. New to Sweetwater?" "Yes." Eliza clutched her carpetbag tighter. "I'm looking for Henderson's Mercantile." The stranger smiled, revealing a dimple in his left cheek. "You're in luck. I'm heading there myself." He extended a hand. "Xavier Rhodes, at your service, madam." Eliza stared at his outstretched hand before tentatively accepting it. "Eliza Lawson." "Miss Lawson," he said with a slight bow that seemed both playful and respectful. "Would you allow me to escort you?" Something about his easy manner made her nod despite her reservations. As they walked, Xavier Rhodes maintained a respectful distance, pointing out various buildings: the saloon, the sheriff's office, the small church at the end of the street. She noticed his spurs jingling with each step, the worn leather of his boots speaking of long days in the saddle. "You're a cowboy?" she asked. Xavier chuckled. "Ranch foreman over at the Triple R, though I started as just another cowpoke." He glanced her way. "And you, what brings you to our little corner of nowhere?" "Mr. Henderson was a friend of my father's. He offered me work after." She trailed off, her hand unconsciously rising to touch the shawl where it covered her scars. Xavier seemed to sense her discomfort and changed the subject, telling her about the cattle drive he'd just completed. His voice had a soothing quality that momentarily distracted Eliza from her anxieties about meeting her new employer and facing yet another community's judgment. When they reached Henderson's Mercantile, Xavier tipped his hat. "Here we are, Miss Lawson. I hope Sweetwater treats you kindly." Before she could thank him, the door to the store opened, revealing a portly man with mutton chop whiskers. "Eliza, John Lawson's girl," she nodded, and the man, clearly Mr. Henderson, bustled forward to take her bag. As he did, a gust of wind caught Eliza's shawl, pulling it away from her face. She grabbed for it desperately, but it was too late. The right side of her face, with its web of angry red scars stretching from temple to chin, was exposed to both men. Mr. Henderson's expression flickered briefly before settling into a practiced smile, but it was Xavier's reaction that caught her attention. There was no disgust, no pity, only a momentary widening of his eyes, and then what appeared to be genuine admiration. "Well," Xavier said softly, "it seems Sweetwater Creek just got a whole lot more interesting." In the weeks that followed, Eliza settled into a routine at Henderson's Mercantile. The work was straightforward, keeping inventory, arranging displays, and serving customers. Many of those customers stared at first, but Henderson's matter-of-fact attitude helped normalize her presence. She maintained her habit of partially covering her scarred side with her hair or a strategically positioned shawl, but she no longer hid completely. She saw Xavier Rhodes occasionally, usually when he came to town for supplies or to enjoy a rare evening at the saloon. He always stopped to speak with her, asking about her day or sharing amusing stories about ranch life. Unlike others, he looked directly at her when they spoke, his gaze never wavering or darting away from her scars. One afternoon, as autumn deepened toward winter, Eliza was arranging a display of tinned goods when the bell above the door jingled. She turned to find Xavier entering, dusting snow from his coat. "Miss Lawson," he greeted with a smile that reached his eyes. "How's business today?" "Slow," she admitted. "The weather has kept most folks at home." Xavier nodded, removing his hat. "I need some supplies. We're expecting a cold spell, and the ranch hands will need extra provisions." As she helped gather his supplies, Eliza found herself watching him from the corner of her eye. There was something about Xavier Rhodes that unsettled her, not in an unpleasant way, but in a manner that made her aware of herself as a woman, not merely as a scarred shopkeeper. "Will you be attending the harvest social on Saturday?" he asked casually as she tallied his purchases. Eliza's hand stilled on the paper. "I hadn't planned to. Why not?" His tone was genuinely curious. She gave him a pointed look, gesturing vaguely toward her face. Xavier leaned against the counter, studying her with those steady eyes. "Do you think people here haven't seen hardship, Miss Lawson? This is the frontier. Everyone carries scars, some just wear them on the inside." His words struck her like a physical blow. "It's different," she said softly. "Is it?" He reached for his purchases. "Think about it. I'd be honored to escort you if you'd allow it." After he left, Eliza found herself unable to focus on her work. The idea of attending a social event of dancing and conversing in a crowded room where everyone would see her terrified her. Yet Xavier's invitation lingered in her mind like a promise of something she'd long ago stopped believing possible. That evening, she stood before the small mirror in her rented room above the mercantile, truly looking at herself for the first time in years. The scarring was severe, pulling at the corner of her eye and mouth, the skin shiny and tight. But her eyes were still the same clear blue, her hair still fell in soft brown waves, and the unmarred side of her face retained the beauty that had once prompted proposals from several young men in her hometown. What would it be like, she wondered, to be seen as more than her scars? To be valued for her strength, her resilience, her ability to continue despite loss. Xavier seemed to see those qualities in her. Was it possible others might too if she gave them the chance? The harvest social was held in the town hall, decorated with corn husks and pumpkins. Eliza arrived wearing her best dress, a blue calico that matched her eyes, with her hair arranged to partially obscure her scars without completely hiding them. Her heart hammered as she approached the entrance, but before she could lose her nerve, Xavier appeared at her side. "Miss Lawson," he said, his voice warm with approval, "you look beautiful." She blushed, unaccustomed to compliments. "Thank you for the invitation, Mr. Rhodes," he offered his arm. "Shall we brave the festivities together?" Inside, Eliza endured the expected stares and whispers, but Xavier kept her engaged in conversation, introducing her to ranch hands and townspeople alike. Many were kind, treating her with a respect she hadn't anticipated. Others were less gracious, but Xavier's steady presence beside her made their reactions easier to bear. As the evening wore on, the fiddler struck up a lively tune. Xavier turned to her with a question in his eyes. "Would you honor me with a dance, Miss Lawson?" The request startled her. "I haven't danced since." She trailed off, touching her scarred cheek. "Then it's high time you remembered how." He held out his hand, patient but unwavering. Something in Eliza rebelled against her own fears. She placed her hand in his, allowing him to lead her onto the dance floor. At first she was stiff with anxiety, but Xavier was a skilled dancer who guided her confidently through the steps. Gradually she relaxed, rediscovering the joy of movement she'd denied herself for years. When the music slowed to a waltz, Xavier drew her closer. "See," he murmured. "You haven't forgotten at all." Their eyes met, and Eliza felt a connection that transcended physical appearance. For the first time since the fire, she felt seen for who she truly was. "Why are you doing this?" she asked softly, his gaze never wavered. Because behind those scars is a woman of remarkable courage. I'd like the chance to know her better. The winter months brought heavy snows to Sweetwater Creek, slowing business at the mercantile but providing Eliza with unexpected opportunities. Xavier called on her regularly, inviting her on sleigh rides or to share meals at the town's small restaurant. Despite the raised eyebrows their friendship caused, Eliza found herself looking forward to their time together. One evening, as they sat by the fire in Henderson's back room after closing, Xavier spoke of his past. "I came west after the war," he explained, rolling up his sleeve to reveal a long scar running from elbow to wrist. "Gettysburg." The doctor wanted to take the arm, but a nurse convinced him to try saving it. Eliza touched the scar gently. "You never mentioned this. Scars are just stories written on skin," he said, covering her hand with his. "They tell where we've been, not where we're going." His words resonated deeply. "Mine tell of carelessness," she admitted. "I tried to save my mother's portrait from the fire. The beam fell and—" She gestured to her face. Xavier's expression softened. "They tell of love and courage, nothing to be ashamed of." That night marked a turning point. Eliza began sharing more of herself, her dreams of someday owning a small business, her love of reading, her memories of life before the fire. Xavier listened, offering his own stories in return. Their friendship deepened, evolving into something neither had anticipated but both increasingly cherished. As winter gave way to spring, Xavier surprised Eliza with an invitation to visit the Triple R Ranch. "The wildflowers are blooming in the north pasture," he explained. "It's a sight worth seeing." The ranch sprawled across rolling hills, its main house modest but well-maintained. Ranch hands tipped their hats respectfully as Xavier led Eliza on a tour, showing her the barns, corrals, and finally, the pasture he'd mentioned. It was carpeted with bluebonnets and Indian paintbrush, creating a tapestry of color beneath the vast Texas sky. They dismounted, walking among the flowers. Xavier seemed uncharacteristically nervous, picking a bluebonnet and twirling it between his fingers. "I've been meaning to tell you something, Eliza," he said, using her first name as he'd started doing in their private conversations. She looked at him questioningly. "What is it?" "I've been offered a partnership in the ranch. Old man Rutherford is getting on in years, and he trusts me to help manage things." "That's wonderful," Eliza exclaimed, genuinely happy for him. Xavier nodded, still fidgeting with the flower. "It means I'll be staying in Sweetwater permanently, building a future here." There was something in his tone that made Eliza's heart quicken. "I'm glad," she said softly. He stepped closer, tucking the bluebonnet behind her ear, his fingers lingering against her scarred cheek. "I was hoping. That is, I wanted to ask if you might consider being part of that future." Eliza's breath caught. "Xavier." "I love you, Eliza Lawson," he said simply. "Your strength, your kindness, your resilience, everything about you." Tears welled in her eyes. "How can you love this?" she whispered, touching her scars. Xavier cupped her face in both hands, his thumbs gently tracing the uneven texture of her skin. "Your scars are part of what makes you strong. They show what you've survived, what you've overcome. How could I not love that?" He leaned forward, pressing his lips to her scarred cheek, before finding her mouth in a tender kiss that conveyed all the words he couldn't express. When they parted, Eliza saw the truth in his eyes, a love that accepted all of her, scars and all. "I love you too," she admitted, the words both frightening and liberating. Xavier's smile could have outshone the sun. "Then say you'll marry me, be my partner in all things." But even as joy flooded through her, doubt crept in. "What about the townspeople, your business associates? Won't they think less of you for choosing someone like me?" His expression grew serious. "Anyone who would judge me for loving you isn't worth my consideration. Besides," he added with a wry smile, "folks around here already know better than to cross Xavier Rhodes." Eliza laughed despite her tears. "Is that so?" "It is." He kissed her again, more deeply this time. "Say yes, Eliza, let me spend my life showing you just how beautiful you are to me." In that moment, surrounded by wildflowers under an endless sky, Eliza made her choice. Yes, she whispered against his lips. Yes. Their engagement announcement caused the expected stir in Sweetwater Creek. Some congratulated them sincerely, while others whispered behind their hands. Xavier remained untroubled by the gossip, proudly escorting Eliza to church services and town events, his hand steady at her back. Mr. Henderson proved to be their strongest ally, hosting an engagement celebration at the Mercantile and loudly challenging anyone who dared speak ill of the match. Gradually, the community adjusted to the idea, won over by Xavier's unwavering devotion and Eliza's quiet dignity. As their wedding day approached, Eliza found herself facing unexpected challenges. The dressmaker initially balked at creating a bridal gown for her, suggesting she might prefer something less conspicuous. Xavier's barely contained fury at this suggestion prompted a hasty apology, but the incident reopened wounds Eliza thought had begun to heal. "Perhaps they're right," she said that evening as they walked along the creek that gave the town its name. "Perhaps I should have a simple ceremony without drawing attention." Xavier stopped, turning to face her. "Is that truly what you want, or are you letting their prejudice dictate your choices?" His question forced her to examine her feelings. "I want to be your wife," she said finally. "The rest is just trimmings." "Then have the wedding you desire," he urged. "Whether that's a grand affair or just the two of us before the preacher, but don't let fear make the decision." His words stayed with her, prompting Eliza to visit Sarah Miller, a widow known for her exceptional sewing skills. Unlike the town dressmaker, Sarah welcomed the commission, working with Eliza to design a gown that complemented her features while acknowledging her unique beauty. The weeks before the wedding brought an unexpected visitor to Sweetwater Creek. Eliza was working at the Mercantile when the bell rang, announcing a customer. She looked up to see a distinguished gentleman in an expensive coat examining the store with obvious interest. "May I help you, sir?" she asked. The man turned, his eyes widening slightly at the sight of her scars before his expression settled into polite neutrality. "Perhaps. I'm looking for a Miss Eliza Lawson." "I'm Eliza Lawson," he smiled, extending his hand. "Edward Blackburn at your service." "I was a business associate of your father's." The name was vaguely familiar from her childhood. "What brings you to Sweetwater, Mr. Blackburn?" "Business, primarily. But when I learned John Lawson's daughter was here, I felt compelled to pay my respects." He studied her with an intensity that made her uncomfortable. "I was sorry to hear about the accident. Your father was a fine man." "Thank you," Eliza said cautiously. Blackburn continued browsing the store as he spoke. "I understand you're engaged to be married." "To the foreman of the RRR, is it?" The fact that this stranger knew her personal affairs put Eliza on alert. "Yes, Xavier Rhodes." Blackburn's tone conveyed volumes. "An interesting choice for a woman of your background." Before Eliza could respond, the door opened again and Xavier entered. He assessed the situation quickly, moving to Eliza's side with a proprietary air. "Xavier," she said, relief evident in her voice, "this is Mr. Edward Blackburn. He was acquainted with my father." Xavier extended his hand. "Mr. Blackburn." The men shook hands, sizing each other up with the wariness of territorial wolves. Blackburn broke the silence first. "I was just expressing surprise at Miss Lawson's choice of husband. Her father moved in more elevated circles." Xavier's expression hardened. "Miss Lawson makes her own choices, sir, and I consider myself fortunate to be among them." The tension in the room was palpable. Blackburn glanced between them before producing a business card from his coat pocket. "I'm staying at the hotel for several days. Should you wish to discuss your father's former investments, Miss Lawson, I would be happy to advise you." After he departed, Xavier turned to Eliza. "I don't trust him." "Nor do I," she admitted, "but he knew my father. Does that earn him your confidence?" Eliza considered the question. "No. But it makes me curious about what he knows." The next day, against Xavier's better judgment, Eliza met Blackburn for tea in the hotel's small dining room. The man wasted no time in coming to his point. "Your father left you more than you realize, Miss Lawson," he said, producing documents from his valise. "Shares in several mining ventures, including one that has recently struck a significant silver deposit." Eliza examined the papers with growing disbelief. "Why didn't I know about this?" "The investments were considered speculative at the time of your father's death. Only recently have they proven valuable." Blackburn leaned forward. "You're a wealthy woman, Miss Lawson, or you could be with proper management." The implication was clear. "And you're offering to provide that management, for a reasonable fee, yes." His smile didn't reach his eyes. "It would also require your signature on several documents authorizing me to act on your behalf." Warning bells sounded in Eliza's mind. "I would need time to consider this. And to have the papers reviewed." Blackburn's expression cooled. "Of course, though I should mention there are certain time constraints, and it would be advisable to keep these matters between us. Business affairs can be so complicated." Eliza left the meeting troubled, the documents secured in her reticule. She went directly to Xavier, who was conferring with the blacksmith about horseshoes for the ranch's remuda. He listened intently as she recounted the conversation, his expression growing darker with each detail. "Let me see those papers," he said when she finished. Together, they visited Judge Parker, the nearest thing Sweetwater had to a legal authority. The elderly jurist examined the documents carefully, his bushy eyebrows drawing together as he read. "These appear to be legitimate shares," he confirmed. "But this power of attorney—" He tapped a document Blackburn had urged her to sign. "This would give him complete control over not just these investments, but any property or assets you currently possess or might inherit." Xavier's jaw tightened. "It's a swindle." "A legal one if she signed," the judge agreed. "Miss Lawson, do you have any reason to believe this man was truly your father's associate?" Eliza thought back to her childhood. "The name sounds familiar, but I was young when we moved west." "I don't recall meeting him." Judge Parker nodded thoughtfully. "I'll telegraph some colleagues back east, see if this Blackburn is known to them." The answer came the following day. Edward Blackburn, it transpired, was indeed a businessman, one known for separating vulnerable women from their inheritances through a combination of charm, false claims of friendship with deceased relatives, and fraudulent legal documents. Armed with this information, Xavier and Sheriff Thompson confronted Blackburn at the hotel. The man denied everything, but when faced with the evidence and the threat of imprisonment, he agreed to leave town on the next stage. "You've made a powerful enemy," he warned Xavier as he was escorted to the waiting coach. Xavier remained unimpressed. "Add it to the list." As the stage pulled away, Eliza took Xavier's hand. "Thank you for believing in me," he squeezed her fingers. "Always." "But the mining shares are real enough. You truly are a wealthy woman, Eliza Lawson." She considered this new reality. "We are wealthy, you mean? Once we're married." Xavier shook his head. "That money is yours. I didn't fall in love with you for your fortune, hidden or otherwise." His integrity only deepened her love for him. "Then we'll use it to build something together, a legacy." Their wedding day dawned clear and bright, the June sky a brilliant blue. The small church was filled to capacity, not just with the expected dignitaries of Sweetwater Creek, but with ranch hands, shopkeepers, and townspeople who had come to respect the unlikely couple. Eliza wore her gown of ivory silk, designed by Sarah Miller to complement rather than conceal her unique beauty. A delicate lace veil softened her features without hiding them, and she carried a bouquet of wildflowers from the pasture where Xavier had proposed. As she walked down the aisle alone, a poignant reminder of all she had lost, she kept her gaze fixed on Xavier, drawing strength from his unwavering love. The scars that had once seemed a barrier to happiness now felt like a badge of survival, a testament to her journey to this moment. Judge Parker, deputized for the occasion, performed the ceremony with dignified warmth. When Xavier lifted her veil to kiss her, he touched her scarred cheek first, a gesture of acceptance that moved many in the congregation to tears. The celebration afterward was joyous, with music, dancing, and more good wishes than Eliza had thought possible. As evening fell, the newlyweds slipped away to begin their life together at the Triple R, now officially renamed the Rhodes Ranch in recognition of Xavier's partnership with Old Man Rutherford. In the years that followed, Eliza and Xavier built a life that defied expectations. They invested her inheritance wisely, expanding the ranch and establishing a foundation to assist burn victims, particularly children, throughout the territory. Eliza's understanding of their unique challenges made her an effective advocate, turning her own pain into purpose. Their home became known for its hospitality, welcoming travelers and newcomers to Sweetwater Creek without judgment or prejudice. When their first child was born, a daughter with Xavier's dimple and Eliza's determined spirit, the celebration involved the entire community. 5 years after their wedding, as they watched their daughter playing in the same wildflower meadow where Xavier had proposed, Eliza reflected on the journey that had brought her to this happiness. "I never imagined this life was possible," she confessed, leaning against her husband's solid strength. "Not with these scars." Xavier wrapped his arms around her, his chin resting on her head. "Your scars taught you resilience, they taught you compassion. They made you the woman I love, the woman who built this life with me." She turned in his embrace, studying the face that had become as familiar as her own. Lines had formed at the corners of his eyes from squinting against the Texas sun, and streaks of silver had appeared at his temples. To Eliza, he had never been more handsome. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked softly. "Choosing a scarred wife when you could have had anyone?" Xavier's laugh rumbled through his chest. "The only thing I regret is not finding you sooner." He kissed her deeply with all the passion of their first embrace. "Your scars make you strong, Eliza Rhodes, and loving you has made me stronger too." Their daughter called to them, eager to show off a particularly vibrant bluebonnet she'd discovered. As they walked hand in hand toward their child, Eliza felt the truth of Xavier's words in her very soul. Her scars had indeed made her strong enough to overcome shame, to trust love, to build a life filled with meaning and joy. In the golden light of the Texas afternoon, surrounded by beauty born of harsh conditions, Eliza finally understood what Xavier had seen from the beginning. That true beauty emerges not despite hardship, but because of it, tempered like steel, refined like gold, and ultimately unbreakable.